Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Greenwood, and I'm the President and CEO of Bio, and I want to welcome you not only to this forum this afternoon, but to our convention and to Chicago. I hope it's all going well for you. It's always nice to see standing room only in a Bio event, so I'm glad we have terrific attendance. So our mission in Biotech is to heal, to fuel, and feed the world. Our companies develop innovative breakthrough products such as new medicines, biotech crops, and renewable fuels that help meet important human needs for better health, food, security, clean energy, and environmental protection, among others. In short, biotech creates the tremendous value. By doing so, this bioscience industry is one of the most innovative and important economic drivers in the United States. The bioscience industry employs more than 1.6 million people and creates an additional 5 million jobs indirectly. These are high-skill, high-wage jobs that pay on average 79% more than the average private sector job. The biosciences have generally been a strong and steady job generator. We've grown jobs at a pace well above the national average, adding jobs at a rate of more than 6% from 2001 to 2010. While total private sector employment fell by almost 3% over the same period. The U.S. Department of Labor projects that biotech job growth will continue to outpace overall job growth throughout at least 2018. Consequently, almost every state has made biotech an important part of its economic development strategy. And all you have to do is go to the exhibition hall and you'll see all of the pavilions from most of the states doing exactly that, of course, competing with all of the pavilions from all of the rest of the world. So we love to be loved. Many states have developed specific policies designed to help them attract, grow, and retain biotech companies. These include R&D tax credits and other capital formation initiatives, workforce development strategies, improving math and science education, a focus on attracting top researchers and NIH grants, providing advanced laboratory space, and strong technology transfer offices, among others. Bio works closely with our state affiliate biotech organizations and with leaders in state government to identify and implement the best of these initiatives and to share them with other states. We've produced a compilation of effective programs and initiatives that create the best policy environment and business environment to support the growth of biotech companies at every stage, from startups to established market leaders. Today, we are releasing our Bioscience Economic Development Report, which is right here. We have produced a compilation of today we are releasing our Bioscience, what you get for looking down, Bioscience Economic Development Report that details these best practices. Although we have published such a list of best practices before, this is our most comprehensive and detailed report to date on state policies that advance the growth of the biotech sector. This is more than a list of policies enacted. It is a guide to the most successful policies with specific examples from across the country. As we launch this report, we are honored to be joined by 3 governors who have made biotech development in their states a priority. Each has demonstrated outstanding leadership by successfully enacting and implementing many of the policies detailed in our report. We are sorry that our host, Governor Pat Quinn of Illinois, could not be with us today as planned. He regrettably had to fly to Peoria to survey flood damage and to help oversee the recovery efforts. He was with us at lunchtime, though, and we appreciated his remarks then. And we appreciated his continued support of having this event here in Chicago. We certainly hope for the best for the residents in the affected areas. Jack Lavin, Chief of Staff for Governor Quinn, will sit in for Governor Quinn. We're also pleased to be joined by Deputy Governor Crystal Thomas, right there. And we are also joined by my governor, I'm from Pennsylvania, Governor Tom Corbett of Pennsylvania. To support the growth of the life science industry, Governor Corbett and his administration have taken great strides to create a climate in Pennsylvania where innovation and entrepreneurship are not only encouraged but embraced. The Corbett administration recently adopted a 10-year strategic plan for the life sciences in Pennsylvania. And Governor, I remember when I came and met with you and suggested that we do this, and you got right on it, and indeed you did. Governor Rick Perry of Texas. Under Governor Perry, Texas ranks in the top tier of states for bioscience employment and posted biotech job growth of nearly 19% over the previous decade. He has spearheaded growth policies such as the Texas Emerging Technology Fund and has been an active and aggressive recruiter of new business to Texas. And I can tell you, I had a meeting with the governor, and he knows his bioscience. He knows his science. Governor Jay Nixon of Missouri. Governor Jay Nixon has been a longtime champion of the life sciences. He's focused on job creation and workforce development policies, including state grants to establish numerous innovation campuses that will provide high school students with intensive training in science and technology fields through apprenticeships with local employers, while they also earn college credit. And Governor told me he had some big news that I'm sure he'll share with us from Monsanto today. Each of these governors is a leader in innovative policy ideas, strong commitment to economic growth, and recognition that encouraging the life sciences offers some of the best job opportunities for their citizens. We're pleased to have them here to share their wisdom and experience. Please welcome the governors. And now I'm going to turn the podium to Fritz Bittenbender. Fritz Bittenbender is BIO's Vice President for State Government Relations and Alliance Development. He's formerly with Cephalon Corporation, so he knows the drug industry inside and out. Before that, he ran Pennsylvania Bio, and before that, he was the top administrator for Governor Tom Ridge of Pennsylvania. So Fritz Bittenbender, it's all yours.
So one of the things about this study, which we think is so very important right now, and one of the reasons we decided to redo it is really over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a lot of states that have had revenue shortfalls, and some of the prioritization that states have in their budgets haven't necessarily focused on economic development. And for my 8 years in the governor's office, I think one of the things that I will remember until the day I die is our budget secretary had this big, beautiful desk, and behind it there was a framed picture that had a very simple statement, and it said, "Nothing stimulates the imagination like a budget cut." And one of the things we've seen, however, despite some of the economic downturns, is that states are doing some very creative things in terms of economic development with less resources than they've had in the past. And one of the things we wanted to capture in this study was just that, the innovative practices that are happening right now with states that have less resources, and the governors that are doing an incredible job really to attract and grow businesses in that kind of environment. And one of the reasons we have these 4 people here today is because they are really shining examples from our report about how you can really grow a bioscience cluster with the kind of resources they have if you're thoughtful and focused about it. So we're very happy to have all 4 of you here today. And I think we're going to start with Jack Lavin, Chief of Staff to Governor Quinn.
Thank you, Fritz, and I want to thank everybody for being here today. I want to thank Governor Corbett, Governor Perry, Governor Nixon. Welcome to Illinois. We're glad to have you all here. This is a great convention, the Bio Convention. It brings people from all over the world. It's truly a remarkable event that continues to do so much to bring us together and seek new innovative methods to feed, fuel, and heal the world. And on behalf of Governor Quinn, I want to welcome everybody here. I want to apologize on his behalf. We do have flooding in Illinois, and it's moving down the state. And so the governor's out there trying to balance being at these events, but also taking care of the people that are in the way of these floods. I also want to thank Jim Greenwood. I want to thank Bio. They came here in 2006. It was the first time it came to Illinois. And now they've come back in 2010, 2013, and we'll be back here in 2016. But in 2006, it helped the bio industry here in Illinois really coalesce. We had a lot of big pharma companies, we had a lot of great universities, but that was the catalyst to bring us all together in a durable, sustained, public-private partnership where we all work together, and we focused on investing in 3 areas and prioritizing. As we say, we have tough budget times. We have to prioritize. We prioritize in infrastructure investments, access to capital, and an educated workforce. And just yesterday, Ernst & Young released a report which showed that the Midwest is a major cluster for bio in this country, and particularly Illinois, which represents the most balanced is the most balanced biotech state with areas in agriculture, energy, and biopharma. So this report showed that Illinois has a biotech sector that employs directly over 81,000 people, 3,500 biotech companies. It's the fourth largest bioscience employment base in the United States. In 2011, the biotech sector generated almost $100 billion of economic impact, $98.6 billion. Our universities have doubled the amount of R&D research they're doing. We have doubled the amount of patents since 2008. All of this didn't start, but in 2006, it really brought everyone together to start working on that. We have world-renowned bioscience businesses, university programs. We have some of the best university research institutions in the world right here in Illinois. We have federal labs. We have groups like iBio helping the biotech sector organize. And through Governor Quinn, as I said, we focused on three areas: access to capital, infrastructure, and an educated workforce. And by doing these, we've prioritized our investments in very tough budget times. We've passed an angel investment tax credit. We have an Invest in Illinois venture fund. We passed the largest capital bill in the history of Illinois. And not only did it help with roads and bridges, so that infrastructure is good for the business environment here in Illinois, but we also put money in for emerging technologies into our capital bill so we can help through capital these emerging technologies. We can also invest in technology parks and incubators. Over the last 10 years, we've gone from 1 technology park in Illinois to 6 technology parks. We can invest in renewable fuels. We can invest in places like the Illinois Medical District. So all these things are infrastructure investments that are helping us build the biotech community here in Illinois. We also want to make sure that we have an educated workforce. So we're working in ways to build STEM priority pathways through initiatives with high schools, with college students, with businesses, to have problem-based applied research, working a specific business problem that's there, and having these students and graduate students and the companies work on these problems and solve these problems. We're also working in the nanotech area. So all these things are coming together: access to capital, investments in infrastructure, an educated workforce, and prioritizing these investments so we can make Illinois a great place for biotech. The Ernst & Young report yesterday showed that biotech is booming in Illinois. And so we look forward to continuing to work with many of the people in this room who have helped Illinois achieve this booming biotech industry. We want to continue working with you, continue working with Bio and Jim Greenwood, and we can make Illinois a great place for the biotech industry and create jobs and economic opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. Next, we'll have Governor Corbett of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Fritz. And making sure that this is working. Thank you for having us here, Fritz. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to be here. My first opportunity to attend Bio, and I certainly appreciate it. As a result, I took a whole bunch of notes here. The print is real big. It gets around the reading glasses side of it. Yeah, you can't. Oh, okay. Maybe we can do some bioscience on you. Okay. Yeah. Somebody out there ready to do it? Okay. Give you an assignment there. In Pennsylvania, life science industry is about 30 years old and has been very active. We have about 80,000 core employees. If you take the indirect and the ripple effect that goes out from that, it's close to 500,000 people that are involved either directly or indirectly in the life sciences. Over $8 billion in trade on a yearly basis. But it took years to build that, and a lot of it is built around the universities and the companies that were already there. In western Pennsylvania, it is more med tech. Obviously, in eastern Pennsylvania, it is more the life sciences, the biotech. What we have found, though, that when it comes to building this kind of industry, it's best to learn from the best practices, but also from not planning from a government side of looking at what's good for the next election, looking for the 2 or 4 or 6 year cycle, looking at a much longer cycle. And that's one of the reasons, with the suggestion of the congressman and many other people, that we created a Life Sciences Leadership Advisory Council and asked them to come up with the roadmap, the long-term plan of where we want to go with bio in Pennsylvania. They were made up of people from the legislature and members of the legislature, members of my administration, made up of members from academia, and then members from the industry themselves. And the council identified what the advantages were that we have in Pennsylvania, and also what the opportunities are. They met for the first time in October 2011, and in May of 2012 issued their first report. They gave me a 10-year strategic plan that eventually, after my terms of office are over, the following governor will be able to pick up. First off was promoting life sciences truly as an economic driver, and it is an economic driver to our states. Then aligning our existing state programs from job training to economic development with the goal of competing globally in the life science businesses. Next, encouraging the commercialization of new discoveries, getting them from laboratory to factory. And in fact, I had a conversation earlier today with somebody who was suggesting that with big pharma reducing to a certain extent, and a lot of research being done and sitting on a shelf somewhere, or with our institutions of higher education doing research and putting it on the shelf, looking at the life sciences and the bio community and getting those off the shelf and allowing them to develop it and working out all the different legal relationships you have to have, but to get that research done rather than see it sitting on the shelf. Next, was investing financially from the state and ensuring a tax structure that is competitive with other states. These 2 governors beside me, Governor Quinn, if he was here, I don't care what anybody says, we compete with each other every day. We're all trying to get business from everybody, and it's based upon what you have to offer and what the interests are, and one of those is a good tax structure for people to come in, and we are all doing that. The goal really is for everyone to partner together, whether it's government, industry, and our universities. And we're blessed in Pennsylvania. We have 13 world-class research centers just in Pennsylvania at this time. And what we're doing is creating that critical mass in which new ideas are turned into those economic engines. This includes using people such as Pennsylvania Bio and Bio, as well as 2 agencies in state government. Our Life Sciences Greenhouse that was created under Governor Ridge, and before that, the Ben Franklin Technology Partners created under Governor Thornburg. So you can see Governor Thornburg was in office in 1979, so this has been going on for quite a while. Ben Franklin helps with a number of startup companies and has a great history in Pennsylvania. And the greenhouses are newer, but it has an equally great history of getting companies out the door and into commercialization, which is extremely important for anybody that's getting into this business. Just in my 2 years, Ben Franklin has created 183 new jobs in those small companies. We've saved other companies during that period of time. But it's not the role of government to create the marketplace. I think it's the role of government not to replace it, but to create the atmosphere and let the marketplace go where it needs to go. One of the things that we've done is created a new program under my administration called Discovered in PA, Developed in PA. It's filling the gaps that are required to get an idea or concept off that table, off that bookshelf, and into commercialization. And it takes a look at the market, it takes a look at the geographic region, and it takes a look at the private investment and how we attract that private investment. One of the other things we're involved in is continuing to support our research and development tax credit. In fact, we've increased it recently from, I think, $35 to $55 million. It's also tradable. So as you know, when these companies are starting up, you really don't need a tax credit when you're starting up, but you need the cash. And so you can sell it to a company that does need the tax credit, and has been very helpful to the new companies coming up. The challenge that we face in the life sciences, as in other industries, again, is my mind, is thinking beyond the terms of government, and more so in what you're doing and how this is not 2-year or 3-year. It's probably more in a 10, 15, and 20-year process. To get government to think that way, and I think the gentleman sitting on the other sides of me would agree, is probably the most difficult thing, especially, at least my legislature, kind of thinks short term. You want to see instant returns. And it takes a while. We don't see instant return too often. So that's where we've worked to turn this idea of what the Science Advisory Panel gave us and get it out there publicly more to the people. And one of the reasons we included the legislature in this. We want to improve the business climate. We're reducing our taxes across the board in Pennsylvania. We see other economies growing in Pennsylvania. We're starting to work on Texas, and when it comes to natural gas and energy and becoming an energy leader. All of this presents what will be, in the next few years, a very balanced economy and a diversified economy at the same time. If you think of Pennsylvania, its bio is important, but our number one business industry is agriculture in Pennsylvania. And I don't think a lot of people think of that, but it really is. So we have committed to continue to reduce our taxes as much as we can. We have a very high corporate net income tax. We've made a commitment, if I can get the legislature to go with me, to reduce our corporate net income tax from 9.9 to 6.9 by 2025. That'll be a huge impact in Pennsylvania. We phased out what was supposed to have been gone a few years ago, our capital stock and franchise tax. Going back to farming, we got rid of the inheritance tax on the family farm, which is big for farmers in Pennsylvania who will invest and spend money in other areas. So the process of making a better economic climate is coming along very quickly. We have state loans and state grants through our governor's action team and many other programs that we have, and I think that we have some questions coming up that I probably can answer the questions better with some of the material that I have here. And I'll stop there and turn it back over to you, Fritz.
Thank you, Governor Corbett, very much for those remarks. And next we'll have Governor Perry. Governor.
Chris, thank you. It's an honor to get to be on the stage with these fellows. I was looking forward to kind of sharing with you all a little bit of the background of how we came to the particular place and the thought process of how we ended up in Texas at the particular juncture where we are, and I think it is fairly, I'll say it, I think it's fairly inarguable. I think Governor Quinn and Rahm Emanuel would say different, but that's rather inarguable that Texas is the #1 state in the nation to do business, and that's not just me saying it, that's such outfits as CNBC as they study and make the decision, and it's CEO Magazine. It's a host of people who take a look at the states. But a decade ago, that wasn't necessarily the case. Matter of fact, a little over a decade ago. And then I'd been governor, I guess, for about 6 months, and we were notified that Boeing, one of the great names in the corporate world, were relocating out of the Pacific Northwest, and they had gotten down to between Chicago and Dallas-Fort Worth. So we were all excited about the idea that we could possibly lure one of the, just absolutely great corporate entities. And this was their corporate headquarters. It was only 165 jobs, very high-paying jobs, but it was more the cachet of being able to say, we lured Boeing to the state of Texas. And long story short, we went up and we worked with them, and we discovered we weren't very good at economic development. That's what we discovered. And they subsequently announced they were going to Chicago, which they did. And but it caused us to go back, Tom, and to really look at the whole concept of economic development in our state. And so if you, over the course of those couple of years, it became abundantly apparent to me, from my perspective, that the single most important thing that a governor does and that state government does is help create a climate where the businesses can thrive in your state. Yes, it's important to have transportation infrastructure. It's important to have good public schools and public safety. And if I went around the room, all of you might list some things that's very important for government to do, and those would be correct. But I will suggest to you the single most important thing that a governor and their legislature working together does is to create the climate where businessmen and women know that they can risk their capital, have a chance to have a return on their investment. That's the single most important thing, because if you don't do that first, you're not going to have the resources that come into your state to be able to pay for the transportation infrastructure, the roads or the water, or the teachers or the policemen's salaries. That's the most important thing you do first. So we really came back in and looked at how do we become more competitive with these other states. And again, these guys are, great and good competitors. I respect them so much. But we're competitors. I hope it's a lot like when the White Sox and the Cubs play, and when they're, if they ever play each other, they're all in, and it's all about winning. But after that, their families go and have dinner together, and they get along, and what have you. It's not it's not the end of the world, but it is how we keep score. So putting those economic development pieces in the puzzle together is our challenge as chief executives of our states. What we did in Texas, we went back and took a look at our economic development department, which was rather cumbersome, and it was not very flexible, and it was not very nimble. So we collapsed it during a legislative session in 2003, put it as a trusteed agency into the governor's office. Then we also created the enterprise fund, which is a deal closing fund for us to be able to go in and to help these companies that would relocate or that they would expand in your state and create X numbers of jobs. There's a matrix, and you meet that matrix, and here's what we will incentivize, and here's the clawback, and if you don't meet the timetable and the number of jobs. We also passed the most sweeping tort reform in the nation. So the key, governing, frankly, is not difficult. Governing is rather simple. You have to keep the taxes as low as you can and still deliver the services that the people are going to request and require. You have a regulatory climate that is fair but predictable. I can't impress upon people how important it is to have predictability and stability in the regulatory climate. And the third one, of course, is to have I know you think I'm going to forget this one, don't you? Is to have a legal system that is clearly keeps oversuing from occurring. And then the fourth part of it is to have a skilled workforce, which is accountable public schools. And then government pretty much needs to get out of the way. That has worked really well in our state. And it has allowed the state of Texas to become highly competitive across this country. And at the same time we've done that, we also added this emerging technology fund that it was a gap funder to some degrees, because we didn't have, as Chicago and Illinois have had some angel investors and historic investors in startups, and we didn't have that. But we've developed it over the decade and the state being a partner in some of that. So we're at that point now. We organically are growing the angel investors and that the group of people that have really helped some of the other states like California and Illinois become highly competitive in this entire biotech world. So that's how we came to this particular place. So today we have, the Enterprise Fund is I think 67,000 jobs directly attributable over the decade that has been put into place, and over $20 billion worth of capital investment that has come to our state just through that one. And I want to say it's somewhere around $400 to $450 million that the state is put in. So that's a pretty good return on their investment, no matter what your measurement might be. But I think the best practices, as I've shared with you, is what we're talking about here. For those of us that do what we do, the chief executives, the governors of our states, is to put economic development structure in place. And that structure is taxes and regulations and legal system and the skilled workforce. And at that particular time, you will have great You'll have great return on your investment. We're doing some very, very innovative things in Texas. The idea, 15 years ago, the idea that we were going to have a pharmaceutical manufacturer in the state of Texas, a big name like GlaxoSmithKline, was a bit out of the realm of even fantasy. 90 days ago, GSK announced a $91 million facility in Bryan College Station. They're going to be manufacturing vaccines in a public-private partnership with Texas A&M University. I mean, that's what can happen in our states, and that's what the opportunities are for those of you in the private sector when you allow these states to be competitive. And you know, we have a lot of fun with each other, poking and probing and what have you with each other, but the fact is that's how America becomes stronger. I think the laboratories of innovation are the states. I can assure you, Bobby Jindal over on the eastern side of our state in Louisiana, he's trying to do away with his personal income tax. And if he does that, he just made his state highly desirable for people like you and companies that you work for. And he's going to make me really uncomfortable if he does that. But that's good, because then we'll have to go back into our state legislatures and in preparation for that, and my full expectation is Bobby's going to get that done. So in January, when our legislature met, I went back in, and we've been very blessed over this last decade in Texas, and we actually have a budget surplus. We got $12 billion in our rainy day fund, and we actually only need about $7 billion in that fund to do what its initial purpose was, which to have protection against a major natural disaster or man-made disaster, and to make sure that the bond ratings were as high as they could be. So we had $5 billion, or we have $5 billion, of which we could deal with in a multitude of ways. The chorus is always rather loud for spinning it all in particular programs, and I understand that. But I thought, what a great opportunity for us to send the message, just as Bobby's doing over there, that we're going to give a tax cut. We're going to reduce the tax burden on the people of the state of Texas in various and sundry ways, and we were having that conversation. And we're going to invest in transportation, water infrastructure, in our ports. Long-term investment, and use that rainy day fund money as the corpus to be able to leverage the projects in the future. So what our neighboring governor did in this case was to put pressure on the Texas legislature and the Texas governor to go back and even be more competitive. And that, I will suggest to you, is what these individuals do very well. Susana Martinez is over on my western side, Mary Fallon is in Oklahoma, and I can assure you they are looking for ways to make their state be competitive so that they might slip down to Dallas and ask a few businesses that they might want to come up, and that's good. Yeah, it makes us uncomfortable, but it's good. It's good for America. It's good for you. Our competitiveness is how America will continue to lead the nation, particularly in the biotech side. And I think if our friends in Washington really will allow these states to be innovators and to give them the freedom to really go compete, that our country will be stronger, and your industry and your professions that you all are involved with will be even more pleasant and more productive.
Thank you, Governor Perry. And with our last speaker, Governor Nixon, who had some exciting news today, which I'm sure he's going to share with us in terms of economic development. And after that, we're going to take some questions and answers. So, Governor.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I should say all of us up here speak not only for the four of us, but for the other governors that during this conference will be here. We really appreciate the organization of BIO, and it allows us to be very efficient with our time as we work to make the contacts and compete and grow our states, and quite frankly, grow America. And were it not for this tremendous organization and this international leading event, we wouldn't have the capacity to get as much done in a short amount of time as we do. And I thank the organizers for doing that. We, in the state of Missouri, we take great pride in the excellent reputation we've earned as a state that thrives on the bioscience sector. It's certainly been something I've worked on since day one as being governor. Our strategic initiative, we engaged 600 local folks, and as the governor from Texas said, we are ready to compete at any time. There's no doubt about that, and it was especially apparent during the World Series 2 years ago against the Rangers. But
All we need is
but unfortunately, his alma mater, A&M, that was bad for Missouri last year. So this little football guy they got is pretty good, so I want to be careful when I talk. It's the number of victories you've had. I have to use my moments when I get a good shot at that. But when we went through that effort, we identified 7 key industries, and clearly bioscience was one of those. This is not my first time at Bio, won't be my last time. This is, and to see the growth not only in the sectors in our state, but also this organization and the opportunities here. But I will want to get to kind of today. I mean, when it comes to the Show Me State's assets in biotechnology, there's simply no bigger name than Monsanto, headquartered in our state in St. Louis. And that's why, for more than 100 years, the state of Missouri has been home to this global leader in agricultural bioscience. And this morning at this convention, we announced their massive $400 million expansion in St. Louis that will create 675 new high-paying jobs. Thank you. Well, I mean, I wanted to do it here, and Monsanto wanted to do it here to send a message not only Rick, don't provoke me, okay? I mean, there's questions later. It's all fine. I mean, Governor of Texas and I had an opportunity a couple of years ago to spend 8 days in a row together, traveling over to visit our troops and to spend a bunch of time there, and it became quickly obvious that we began to bounce back and forth. But I can't stress any more that Governor Perry makes you compete. He makes you ready to compete, and that's all fine with us in a Show Me State. Anyway, I want to talk about 2 other quick ideas here and then get cross-examined by Governor Perry, it would appear. We're keeping taxes low, my friend, okay? We're 48th in the country on taxes. You don't got me on that one. We're fine there. We keep our hands out of people's pockets, and yeah, it helps us create jobs. But we've done a couple of things. Our state small business credit initiative, which is important. This is important not only to have the deals like Monsanto, which are the big deals. The one that you talked about, the $90 million investment, those are great. But ultimately what you're trying to get here also is the way the jobs are created through innovation and through small startups. And getting students thinking about from preschool all the way through graduate school, and businesses thinking about how can they take inventions and turn them into profits, and how do they take those profits and turn them into employees and growth opportunities. And that's why we focus on something we call our IDEA, or IDEA funds, providing that critical early stage capital to promising startup companies. To date, our Missouri Technology Corporation has deployed $10 million in funding 31 companies, which helps these startups put $50 million. I think similar to our friends from Texas. You see this. Well, if you can prime the pump a little bit, the private dollars follow. And that's what we're always looking for. I think from our chairs, when we get into the questions, you'll see we're certainly willing to put money on the table, but we've got to see for the taxpayers an especially high return on investment. We can't make it on 5 or 6% like a banker up here. As states, when you're talking about public dollars, we need to see those bigger returns, and no place are we seeing that as good as in the bioscience sector, where you see growth going so fast that these deals turn around. The other part that I want to say right here, and I know we'll talk about a lot of tax issues and investment issues and tax credits and all this sort of stuff, but the number one economic development tool in this country is education. Okay, starting kids before kindergarten, making sure they compete, making sure they have a lifetime of learning is vitally, vitally important. And making sure that the business community is in sync with that and that all of our kids know that they are competing not only across the counties or across the states, but across the world. And that's why maintaining a higher expectation, lengthening school years, getting more folks to go to college, getting more folks that have college degrees that don't have degrees to go back to college and finish those degrees, getting worker training programs so that workers are the best they can possibly be and the most productive they can possibly be is exceptionally important. And we have a series of things we're doing to try to do that. But I would stress constantly to the business community that you know that, we all know that, we shouldn't pass first base without stopping and looking at it. And first base is education, and supporting public education and the access it gives everybody in this country to grow up to be what they want to be is the baseline importance of all economic development. We look forward to your questions.
Thank you all very much for what I think is some tremendous wisdom that you imparted not only to us, but to other states as we think about best practices around the country, and you're certainly shining examples of some of those best practices. Just throw out a couple questions, and then we're going to open some questions to the audience as well. But some of you touched on sort of big business climate issues and how you're trying to attract companies through changes in the business climate. Can you give me one or two successes, specific successes that you've had on the economic development side, attracting a bioscience company or growing a bioscience company in your state? And Governor Nixon, we can't have you go first because you just talked about a really big one. So.
Sure. Recently, well, not recently, there was a company that was created, Biopharma, homegrown, started in
Whose CEO is sitting right there in the front row. Go.
Put your hand up. Okay. It's focused on developing drugs for rare diseases in which there is a unmet medical need and has grown into an international biopharmaceutical company with significant operations, not just in Pennsylvania, but in Europe. And I want to just divert for one thing there. When we talk about competition among the states, we are competing with each other. But we also understand we're competing with the world. We all travel to other countries to bring in trade in, and we know that those countries are competing with us, and we have to be prepared. And I agree with you on education. We need to be there on the education. In September of last year, Biopharma nearly doubled its current availability of space by leasing an additional 71,000 square feet. They increased from 188 employees to an additional 151 over the next few years. So this was a very small seed company, right, that just grew very quickly in Pennsylvania. It received from us a funding offer of about $583,000 from two different programs that we have, our Job Creation Tax Credit Program and our Pennsylvania First Grant that we call it. So it is truly, in our opinion, one of the many examples that we have of a success here in Pennsylvania.
That's great. Governor Perry.
Lexicon, and I think it's Arthur Sands is Dr. Arthur Sands in the audience. He was here. Lexicon was a company that was already up and going, and they were mapping the mouse genome. This was about probably 12 or so years ago. And kind of the rest of the story on how we ended up with a pharmaceutical manufacturer in our state, because we did not have the infrastructure. But Lexicon was the first foundational company, and they were lured to College Station, to Texas A&M, to help create what was to become known as the Texas Institute of Genomic Medicine. And they were a library for mouse knockoff genes and very successful. But we realized that was just the first of a number of foundational companies, if you will. And 2 years later, the state helped underwrite the Texas Institute of Preclinical Studies. We recruited a Dr. Terry Fossum into, and it was a facility placed right beside Lexicon on the campus at Texas A&M. They have a very large campus. It's like over 5,000 acres, a very large campus. And then 2 years later, the Center for Therapeutic Medicine was put into place. And this was where a private sector group that had found that ability to substantially compress the amount of time on vaccines from changing from one strain to another strain. We were egg-based historically, and it took 9 months to go from one strain to another. This company came up with a technique using cell-based practice and compressed down to 45 days the period of time we can go from, say, H1N1 to H1N7. I mean, just some fascinating applications for the world, and whether it's pandemics or whether it's with the terrorist type compounds that would be used against our warfighters. I mean, just some. So my point with sharing all that with you is that it finally ended up with a Health and Human Services request for purchase, RFP, for a facility to do a finish fill and be able to deliver X numbers of millions of doses in a certain period of time, of which GSK came in, was the private sector partner. So it all started with that little company, Lexicon, and an Aggie spending $50 million on mapping the mouse genome. There was a joke there somewhere, right? And there was a lot of criticism from the folks in the private sector and the media and elsewhere, until we announced that, which will end up being multi-billions of dollars that will flow into this this line of facilities that have been built because there were people who had a vision and they knew it could happen. And that's what is so great about this. And that little company, Lexicon, is also going to announce probably in the next few months a breakthrough that is going to be really world-changing. And that's what you do that is so cool from my perspective. Yeah, it's good to make money, and it drives us. But when you start talking about the quality of life issues that so many of you are involved with, I mean, that's when you really can get up and look in the mirror in the morning and say, you're making a difference. And that is why this conference and what you do is so important to the world.
Thank you, Governor. Jack.
Sure. We've had some great successes, of course, with Astellas Pharmaceutical and Dakota Pharmaceutical locating their North American headquarters here in Illinois. These are the two of the top three largest pharmaceutical companies from Japan locating in Illinois. And on Astellas, we competed with other states. We're ready to compete with any state, and we have a great environment to grow. So those are big companies, but I want to cover a small company that I think is a great success story of bringing everybody together, and that's Horizon Pharma, based in Deerfield, Illinois. Back in 2008, we had our Department of Commerce, we had our Science and Technology Coalition, we had our iBio organization all come together, working together to have this company, which was originally based in Palo Alto, California, come to the Chicago area. When I talk about infrastructure spending, we spent money on the Illinois Science and Technology Park, an incubator, a technology park that we invested in, the private sector invested in. We created an environment for a company like Horizon to come there, all working together, all convincing a company in California to come to Illinois. And the president and CEO was an Abbott Laboratories alum, a great corporation that's here, headquartered in Illinois. And they decided to locate here, put their company here. They started with 1 employee. A few years later, they're at 250 employees. But all along the way, when they were doing clinicals and doing that kind of research and getting approval from the FDA, they were growing here in Illinois because we have the talent here, the educated workforce here. We have a good business environment. Despite what people say, we have the 5th if you combine the corporate income tax and local tax and all that, we have the 5th lowest in the country. So we do have a great environment here, and this is a prime example of a company started with 1 employee in 2008, and now in 2011 they have 250 employees. They're located here in Illinois. They've raised hundreds of millions of dollars to grow their company, and they've done it right here in Illinois, raising venture capital, growing in a great business environment. That's a great success story of a startup investment infrastructure that we have helping a company grow.
That's outstanding. Thank you. Governor Nixon.
I'll be quick because the stories are relatively similar between states. They're individuals with education willing to take risks with a small help from us in the public sector, whether it's a company like SCD Probiotics out of Kansas City or Catalyst Surgical, which does eye surgery issues in St. Louis. They start small, and it's really the motivation of the individuals involved and the technology that helps things go. But to touch and amplify everything everybody said here, I think it's important to note that when we talk about competing at the states, we're talking about competing for America, not just for our states. And quite frankly, when we talk about competition, we joke between governors about a sports game or about a particular company. But ultimately, what we're driving towards is a public sector that is much more quicker in responding, is viewed as helping, not hurting, and is interested in interacting directly with folks and making decisions quickly. And I think that's one thing all 4 of the states share here. Win or lose on any particular deal is irrelevant, but the things we're seeing in public sector work at the state level of folks able to make decisions, say the words yes and no, invest real dollars, expect returns, then manage and watch those projects as they move forward, whether it's a Monsanto or an SCD Probiotics or any of the companies mentioned here. It's that type of hands-on involvement and direct work that can move us forward as Americans, and that's why the states play such a key role in actually taking these smaller operations and getting them going so that we can then later on take a small amount of credit for their risks. We can take a large amount of credit for their successes, but make no mistake, the small folks getting started, just a little bit of help and then stepping back and letting them go makes a real and lasting difference.
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. One more question then. If the audience has any questions, we'll certainly can take a few from the audience before we're done. One of the things that all 4 of you share in common is that you all have very strong state bioscience associations that really help to support the growth of your cluster. And how, talking to some of the other states and some of the other people in the room, how can we leverage those relationships with our strong state associations and the governor's office to do a better job working with you so that we can be more effective in each of your states? Anyone? Yep.
I think you can help. I mean, we have got to embrace technology and science. I mean, people are scared. I mean, half the people that walk into this conference here are scared that they won't know what's going on. And everybody starts every conversation with, I have no idea what you're doing. We got to break down barriers so that people embrace technology and embrace science in the agriculture sector, many other sectors. And your all's assistance to educate the younger folks about the great careers that are available and inspire them entrepreneurially so that they can make profits is really important. And I would not underestimate the value that each of the organizations have here to help us educate these young folks about what the careers of tomorrow are and inspire them about the entrepreneurial necessities. I mean, this isn't just about having a good idea. It's also about running a business. This isn't just about inventing something new. It's actually making a profit with it and making sure that you help our small companies make that step. There's so many good ideas that don't get developed, so many good opportunities that get missed because people spend their time thinking about the theory instead of the practicality of business. Your help as mentors to them in breaking down the barriers so they're not afraid of science, but equally importantly, helping them get the business skills that can actually be practical enough to turn those ideas into profits is essential in our local states.
Well, I just want to add, I think iBio has done a great job for us here in Illinois, but part of what we need to do is bring industry, academia, and government together. The governor has an innovation council. iBio is part of that because we know innovation is what's going to drive the economy in the future. And so we need to make sure all those players are working together, large companies, small companies, government, academia, all moving in the same direction. And it's tough. We have tough budget times. We got to work together. When we go down to Springfield and our legislature, they don't always see the positive investment of some of these things. And so we need iBio, and we need them down there educating our legislators. When we did the Capitol bill, we made sure there was money in there for emerging technologies. But that didn't just happen. Because a lot of our legislators, and many of these governors would know, they want to do what some people call member initiatives, you know, build a local road in their city or put up a statue. But we got to invest in the future. We got to invest in innovation. And that's what governors do. Governor Quinn has done that. These governors have done it. You got to have funds out there to give that little bit of extra help to these small, startup, innovative, technology-oriented companies. And that's what iBio does, because they're down there educating our legislators so that we can move forward. And Governor Nixon mentioned mentorship. We've also invested in iBio as a state through programs such as Propel, which is a mentorship program. So we have a lot of great large pharma companies, life science companies. They got to work and mentor these smaller companies and help them grow. So we've also invested in iBio, them listening to what all the players in this business environment say and what are the needs to move forward and grow the life sciences industry.
That's great.
I would echo, particularly talking to the legislators. Pennsylvania, as Fritz Wells knows, is a full-time, and I do mean full-time legislature. They're there year-round except for the summertime. Some of them get what bio is about. Many of them really don't. You talked about initiatives. We used to have a lot of money going out the door for initiatives prior to my administration. That really nice, really nice feel-good stuff, but there was no return on investment. And we've reduced it. I mean, first thing I had to do was reduce a $4.2 billion deficit when I walked in the door, and we did it in the first year and a half. But we took the money that we could and we started investing it where we saw a return on investment. A lot of times that means the bio groups, PA Bio, needs to go in there and talk to the legislature when it comes down to budget. My budget's due June 30. The month of June is going to be a hot summer in Texas. It's going to be so busy with what we have going on. But in order to maintain certain elements of the budget, and when you watch legislators start slashing what the governor recommends and they were going to put something else in and you have to fight to get it back in, the more education that you all can do to legislature year-round, not just in the budget season, but year-round, to say, bring them to the various companies. Let them see how a small company starts out in a life science greenhouse as we have, and moves into the University City Science Center, then moves into a small facility, and then moves into another facility. Oh, by the way, those might be 100 people that are going to be in their district. They have to really be shown that entire perspective. That's probably the best thing you can do for yourself, but do for us as governor.
That's great.
Tom Kowalski has been at this for at least 28 years that I know of, and as young looking as he is, he's had lots of years in the vineyards. But what he spends and what he does, I will suggest to you, is secondary. It's important, but it's secondary to the most important thing that we can do, and that is to develop the next generation of bioscientists. And that is the reason that funding STEM, our science, technology, engineering, and math programs are so important. We have funded some 65 STEM academies now in the state of Texas to try to make sure we have that next generation of scientists and innovators and entrepreneurs, I might add, that come out of that. So I think that the really focus on, because they're going to be, I mean, as good as Tom is, and the work that you've done in supporting the biosciences over the course of the last 2 decades in Texas, that will pale in compared to this just absolute cadre of next generation of bioscientists that are going to be out and creating the wealth and creating the next big thing. And they will be a substantial lobby team to come to the legislature and come to the governors and say, we must have this type of continued support of our industry.
That's great. Do we have time for a couple questions from the audience? Does anyone have a question for the governors they'd like to ask? We have 4 governors sitting in front of you. Nobody has a question. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I'm from
Last one.
the great state of Michigan, very close by, at a university. You all come from states with great universities. I submit to you the universities are developing a lot of the innovations that are going to turn into those new companies in your states. Can you talk a little bit about how and all the universities, especially the public ones, are under budget constraints? Can you talk a little bit about how you're helping the universities truly translate those technologies out into your states?
One of our great universities isn't state-related, Carnegie Mellon or Drexel. Carnegie Mellon is well-known for, and Pitt, but Carnegie Mellon is well-known for tech transfer. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. Pitt is getting there. Penn State has not been as good, and I have, we make a contribution from the budget to Penn State. And when I first walked on the job, I always thought that they did what all the other universities did, publish and get it out the door instead of publish and put it up on the bookshelf. And so my encouragement has been, and we've not been able to give them great increases because of the budget, you can help yourself in this regard. We have a state system of higher education, Division II schools, for want of a better description, where because they're state employees, they're not allowed to publish and go make money on it. So we're trying to get that law changed so that those universities can continue to do it. Some of them are one of them, Westchester, is right down in the middle of our biopharma area in southeastern Pennsylvania. Be a great place. Could partner easily, but these professors can't go into that area. And it'd be great if they could. Pitt, through the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, UPMC, is doing it a great deal. So the encouragement, frankly, tight dollars might actually encourage them to go do this and not put the publication on the shelf and go on to the next project.
I think one of the key things, is to look at the dual missions, especially the land grants and the research universities, the dual missions of teaching and providing degrees, and then research. I think both of them are merging much closer than they used to be. But I think ultimately part of our responsibility here is to get the business community much more tied directly to the universities on the first half of that, on the teaching side. I think for many years universities have had the luxury of thinking about private dollars and private involvements on the research side only. And that's why we've moved to involvement directly with our business community. The Innovation Campus piece I talked about before, high impact internships. We're trying to provide workers, a number of workers for every open position, but the bottom line is trying to shorten those times of degrees, trying to get folks headed where there are jobs. But I think that from our perspective, we've got, as Governor Corbett said, do a lot better job on the tech transfer side so that there is a skin in the game and profits in the game for the public institutions of higher education. And we ask on the other side that businesses get involved, not just in the research side and gleaning the capacity that comes from that, but also on the actual degree side, where they're helping us much better define and much better deliver the degrees that are guaranteed to provide the jobs of the future.
And in Illinois, what we're trying to do, as I mentioned a couple times, through our Innovation Council, through our Illinois Science and Technology Coalition, we're trying to make sure that private business and the universities are talking. If the universities are doing research, but they don't know what it's for, we're not getting the return on investment. We bring them together through these organizations, and they're going to be more efficient. And their research is going to lead to investment. And so we're trying to bring these together. We've had venture capital investment in Illinois double over the last 5 years. And that's because we are bringing them together. So private companies are seeing what the universities are doing, and as that technology is transferring, to the private sector from academia, they're already there. They're already sitting at the table together. So that's what the Governor's Innovation Council is about, the Science and Technology Coalition. And then we're adding on top of that funding. So we have our capital bill that we did, the largest capital bill in Illinois history, had an emerging technology fund. We've got some money from the federal government for a program that's part of Advantage Illinois, which we invest in venture capital. So we're investing in side by side, and we take a junior position to other venture capital companies. So those venture capital companies are glad to come because they have other venture capital junior to them. So that's what we're trying to do in Illinois. We have to have this engagement of the private sector, universities, our innovators, our entrepreneurs, and we're doing that by trying to have access to capital, but also bringing people together in places where those synergies can happen.
That's great. Governors, I want to thank you. I can't think of a more incredible way to highlight our economic best practice report than to have four of the most dynamic leaders from around the country share with us their insights on economic development and how to grow our cluster. I think it's been tremendously insightful. I hope that each of you will take this report home with you. And I'd just like to make two shout outs. A report like this just doesn't happen. We had involvement from all 46 of our state associations to get information in this report, and it's something we're going to update on a regular basis. I want to particularly thank our consultant, Pete Pellerito, who's over there, who did a lot of the writing for the great quality, and our own office assistant, Caitlin Van Zant, who did the layout and did a lot of the things to make the report look like something you all might want to read. So again, thank you for being here. It's been tremendous to have this esteemed panel at Bio, and we hope to see you at Bio again soon. Thank you.